Everybody and welcome. Firstly, I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome everybody to the City Governance Committee meeting of the 15th of February 2023. I declare this meeting open at 9:44. And I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. So wave to the camera, everybody. Hello. We'll get straight on to attendances and leave of absence. I have two leave of absence today. Councillor Bradley is not with us and neither is Mayor Power. So could I please ask for a mover of that? Councillor Kransky has moved that. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hall has seconded that motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I now move on to item 4, declarations of conflicts of interest. I have not received any conflicts of interest, but does anybody have a conflict of interest for any agenda items today? None, that be none. We'll now move on to item 5, the reports. Today, councillors, bear with me. I've moved the reports around today. So after 5.2, we will go straight to the late reports of 6.1 and 6.2 so that the Finance Manager, Carolyn Bugg, can do all her reports in order. But firstly, we will start with 5.1, which is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, December 2022. Through the Director, could I ask the Acting Corporate Manager, Governance Manager, Miss Anita White, to enter discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the Chair, good morning, councillors. Item 5.1 presents a report from the 5 December meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee. The councillor reps on that committee are, as you know, Councillors Murphy and Councillor Fraser. This report outlines the key internal audit activities conducted in the quarter up to that meeting. I'd only highlight, selfishly, the endorsement given by the committee to the approach proposed by the organisation in respect of the compliance factor and the development of an obligations register for the organisation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms White. I have Councillor Raven. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Anita, thank you for including the minutes in the report. Can we get the agenda of that sent as a background paper or sent separately, or did I receive it and just miss it? I received it and missed it. Thank you. Ignore me.
Through the Chair, if I may, what we've done is we now circulate the agenda prior to the ARC committee meeting so that any councillors who have a particular interest and would like to provide their feedback to Councillors Fraser and Murphy can do so.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. We changed that, I believe, just before the last meeting so that all councillors could be involved. You're more than welcome to attend the Audit and Risk meeting as well. I have Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Look, it's just a simple question, more of a general question. When it indicates outstanding internal audit actions, and it indicated outstanding audit actions have increased from 83 last quarter to 115 this quarter, what's the time frame for those to be actioned? Like when you've got these actions, is there a time frame that they need to be actioned, or how does that sort of work, please?
Yeah, good question, Councillor Stemp. Probably the jump in the number is due to the fact that we'd finalised some audits, so the audit action items are then out in the organisation to be progressed. As the reports are finalised, the timeframes for delivery of those actions is agreed, and that takes into account what are the other obligations on that particular business group at the time and the business as usual requirements. So we set some realistic timeframes for when those improvement opportunities identified by the internal audit can be delivered. So there's no set time. It depends on what the improvement action is out of the audit and when it can be realistically delivered.
Councillor Stemp, has that answered your question? Councillors, do we have any further questions at all? No. Could I ask for a mover of the report, please? Councillor Fraser has moved the report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Raven has seconded. Can I, by a way of show of hands, please vote? All those in favour? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms White. Do we have any general business for Ms White at all? No? Do you have any for us?
If I may, councillors, as you know, you are supported every month through the corporate meetings team to deliver the minutes, the agendas, all of that work. You'll notice the eagle eye among you that there's some new faces. I'd like to welcome them to the team. If you can, please make them welcome, as I know that you will, but really glad to have been able to attract some talent as we lost some to other areas of the business. So, yep.
Thank you, Ms White. I too would like to extend to the meetings team. Thank you very much. They do work hard behind the scene and make us look good. It is not easy being up here. Sometimes it's a little bit daunting and a bit scary, but thank you for your support and helping us through these processes. Thank you, Ms White. Have a great day. So, councillors, we'll move on to 5.2, which is the Governance Financial Performance Report, December 2022. Through the Director, I'm going to ask Ms Carolyn Bugg to enter into discussions, but before I do that, I note that this item of 5.2 has a confidential attachment. A proposed resolution to move this matter is displayed on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session? None? I note that this is now going to move on. Please note, councillors, that there could be confidential information in this report, so please be mindful of what you say. Carolyn, I hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. Item 5.2 is the quarterly financial report to the end of December 2022. Just the first note on this report is it does incorporate the first budget amendment, so that has been reflected in the report in front of you. There are no additional risk areas identified in December, further to what was reported in the November report. The operating surplus to the end of December was $16.29 million. Revenue tracking above budget, predominantly due to income tax recovered from commercial business units within the organisation. However, interest revenue has also contributed to the variance, with interest on our cash investments being approximately $2 million more than budget. And I did mention in the budget amendment that we were tracking or adjusting our budget for those interest rates we knew at the time. We've seen that interest rate increase continually, so hence the variance there. Operating expenditure is below budget by $1 million, just over $1 million, predominantly continued in the employee costs, being the major contributor to that variance. The capital expenditure is slightly below budget at 3% or $4.9 million, so that's tracking very well. This report also contains LIP reporting by divisional areas. I also provided more detailed information quite late yesterday to each of you, so hopefully you've received that. Investment goes back to we are running pretty well in that space due to the interest rate increases. The return on Q2C funds in December was 2.8%, which was up on November's 2.71%. Sundry debtors, just to note that the debtor Pete has been paid early in January, so although it's reflecting as outstanding in this report, it has now been received. I'm happy to take any questions you may have on the report.
Thank you, Caroline. Just before we start, I just wanted to say we as council also feel the same restraints that any business out there has. We've had cost increase, etc. We've got 4 months to budget, and council are working extremely hard to make sure the books are balanced for our community and residents. In saying that, I have questions from Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. Through Carolyn, just a quick question. Obviously, you talked about surplus, and there's a huge program by council, $100 million for a wastewater treatment plant, and we've got several of those coming online. How are we tracking compared to other councils? We're tracking quite well, aren't we?
We actually don't track ourselves against other councils, but I know. we look at our delivery, and that's our focus. But
No, thanks for that, but I'm just asking for the punter at home, because probably the most common question we get is, what is council doing with our finances? How are my ratepayer dollars being spent? And we obviously report them in an open and transparent way. But when it comes to the overall operations of the business, people genuinely don't have a clue. So if in this meeting we're talking about we're tracking quite well, that actually gives them confidence that we're spending their money wisely, despite cost of materials going up, cost of labour going up, import restrictions on some of our equipment that we need for parks and buildings and what have you. I think it's as plain a speak as possible. Just we're doing good. Yep.
Great question, Councillor Lane. I've got Robert Stratton who'd like to add to that conversation, if you don't mind.
I would like to. We don't routinely track capital delivery against other councils. However, we did have a meeting with Queensland Treasury Corporation the other day, because they do a credit review on councils' borrowing application every year. And we were one of the last councils they got to in their program, and they made the comment that our percentage of capital delivery this year was outstanding, well above other councils. So they were very complimentary that in the environment we're in, with rising costs and difficulty in supply chains, that we were able to deliver the percentage we were at in the current year. So you're 100% right. Third-party organisations are observing that we are going well in that space.
Thank you, Robert. I'd also like to note that I know that we're only 12 months out from a flood, but there's still some work that is still being carried out from those floods, and supply chains were difficult and delivery was difficult as well. We also saw price increases. So realistically, Logan is sitting pretty well. I have Councillor Karansky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment rather than a question. I just noticed variations in how our monthly financial reporting is coming back to councillors now, and I just wanted to express that I'm appreciative of how the reporting is easy to read, and I know it's challenging for us to wade through all of our documents, but it's also, I would expect, challenging for the public to read a number of council reports, those who don't speak the lingo. So it's refreshing to see. I love pie charts and bar graphs and various other things, and that local infrastructure program-based budget, it's open, it's transparent for the community to see clearly what's happening within council. So I realise these are some modifications to the way you've been reporting, and I think it's great. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Councillors, there's a motion up on the screen. Could I please get a mover for the motion that is displayed? Councillor Karansky has moved it. Councillor Wilcock has seconded it. Have we got that, girls? Yep. Could I please, by way of show of hands, all those in favour? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, we're changing the agenda around, so we're actually going to go to the late reports right now of 6.1. And Caroline, you're still in the seat for this one. So we're going to be talking about the 2022-2023 Local Infrastructure Program. Through the Director, Caroline, would you like to enter the discussions, please?
thank you, Chair. So item 6.1 is a report on LIP 22-23. This is the first report to committee under the new guidelines, and it's seeking to endorse and approve expenditure under the LIP program. The intent of the report is to keep these projects moving toward delivery, and in effect a transitional step under the new guidelines. A full report of all LIP projects will be presented to the Governance Committee at a later date. The projects listed on the first table are the reports that of the report are those projects that are not currently listed as approved projects on the LIP register at the time of Council adopting the LIP policy. So we're looking for approval of those. And the second table of the report reflects the projects that Sport, Leisure and Facilities are considering as low risk under the guidelines and are to be delivered by eligible lessees of council-owned or controlled land. We're looking at for those LIP projects also to be approved in this report.
Thank you, Carolyn. Just to reiterate, so we had a change in the policy at the first meeting of the year with regards to the approval process of local infrastructure program. So moving forward, every month we will see a report of local infrastructure program coming up to be approved. It just adds to the verification of those programs. I've got Councillor Kransky. Anybody else? Councillor Wilcox, you're next. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine's a comment more than a question. Again, I raised when we were discussing this issue last my concerns about delay and delivery as a consequence of bringing in new protocols. Just to be clear, I'm fully transparent of being, fully supportive of being open, transparent, and making sure the public have access to as much information as they possibly can. But I did just want to highlight that when we look at the Big River Country Park in Division 4, I think it exemplifies the problem I was concerned about. This was a project that was actually came up before this new legislation came in for council in November of last year. So we're actually potentially approving a report in February for a request that's come through in November through one of our sporting associations, and the sporting association is contacting me saying, why has this languished? Why hasn't this project come through? And of course we're going through the Sport and Rec officers to communicate. But I guess the point I'm making is I accept there'll be a lag time as we're transitioning, but from the community's perspective, they're seeing an added layer of red tape for them. And you know, we had assurances that there wouldn't be too many delays. So I'm hoping in due course, once we're swimming and we've got our systems in alignment, that we can shorten up those delay periods, because I know there are a number of groups out there who are actually physically delivering the infrastructure on the ground themselves. These aren't projects necessarily being delivered by council, and they're waiting for communication from council about what's the hold up and when will the rubber hit the road. So I just want to share that with you, as opposed to necessarily drawing you on that, but I do have some concerns with delays in delivery of projects. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that indulgence.
Thank you, Councillor Cransley. I tend to agree. I know that I've got a couple of projects on here that are being delivered by the sporting groups as well that have been delayed. Unfortunately, we just had that process with the new policy coming through. Hopefully, this transition will run more smoother as of next month as well. Councillor Wilcox, please.
Thank you. I'd have to agree with both of you. I'm hoping in due course, I'm hoping delays will be minimal. But just more of a quick question in the discussion part of the report, where it says the projects listed below are listed as approved projects on the LIP register at the time of council adopting the LIP policy. Just wondering, does this mean that the other projects that have previously been supported by LIP, were they not approved projects that have been brought forward? I'm just concerned about the language here.
So the projects that we have on our LIP register, which is maintained by the finance branch, were under the old guidelines approved. So these projects are the ones that were not on that register at the time of the decision of council to move to the new guidelines. So this is the sweep up of those projects that were neither on the register, so therefore not approved under the old guidelines, and are being approved via the new guidelines.
So moving forward, we should just be having the second table?
Correct.
Okay, lovely, awesome. That was all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say how pleased I am with this reporting, purely from my point of view, being able to understand what other councillors are getting their community clubs to do as low risk. Getting an indication of how that looks is really helpful. Before, we didn't have clear line of sight on that, and not saying anything wrong was being done, but now I can sit there and go, oh, cool. So a fence can be delivered by a club instead of me trying to go through you guys, and that's really helpful for me to help make decisions that'll help the community in the fastest time possible. And like other councillors, I'm sure that the delay on this one was more because we were shifting between two policies. I've got every faith that you'll get things swimming in the right direction once we get into the groove of things, and we'll see more and more of these projects that can be celebrated by the community because they can see us voting on them.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. So the fence was one of my projects, and yes, for the delivery of that, it is far more economical for council, for the club to deliver those, and faster as well. So I know that you and Councillor Lane have done fencing around football fields before, and as you can see, I got a great price. So thanks for noting that. That's well done. Councillors, there should be a motion up on the board. The girls are doing a fantastic job today. Could I please get a mover for that motion? Councillor Lane has moved it. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Russell has seconded the motion. All those in favour, could you please raise your hand? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. We're moving along quite well. So we'll move on to the other late report, which is item 6.2, Divisional Infrastructure and Capital Improvement Program. Caroline, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to clarify projects under the DISIP or DICIP program of works, to endorse these and adopt these projects. The first table in the report indicates the projects that are notionally under this program of works. The second table indicates the remaining funding unallocated under the program, and we're recommending that this funding be reallocated to divisional LIP in accordance with those guidelines and policy. Not sure there's much more I can add at this point.
Thank you, Caroline. Again, this is about just making sure our policies and procedures are in line with what we're trying to work forward and to be transparent. This is just cleaning up the register, if we like. So, councillors, I put it out to the floor. Have we got any questions? Councillor Karansky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the Chair, I just wanted to clarify, so effectively, I can't even remember what the acronym stands for. Councillor Raven might be able to help me, but this was formerly the predecessor to the local infrastructure program-based budget that existed in the previous term. And the funds that we're seeing brought forward on this table are effectively funds that weren't allocated when the shakedown was finally done at the end of the term. And what you're asking of us today is to redistribute those funds back into the local, well, not the local infrastructure program-based budget per se, but so that that can actually be allocated as if it were part of the local infrastructure program-based budget. Is that correct? My question to you today is, so obviously every councillor here today is being very conscientious about dotting their I's and crossing their T's. All of our legal department has been right all over this, and they're satisfied that we're moving forward in a completely open, transparent, above board way, so no councillor should have any concern about these funds being allocated in this manner.
That's correct, councillor. The revised program that you see in front of you, the paper that you see in front of you, has been reviewed for our legal advice.
And as Councillor Murphy said, that effectively this is a remnant from our previous term, and it's actually tying up that loose end. Is that right? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Karansky. Carolyn, I have one quick question. With regards to the remaining funds left over and then reallocated to the divisions, will that happen directly in this financial year, or will they be rolled over to the 23-24 year?
Thank you, Chair. As soon as this is approved by Council, those funds will be available to administer through the LIP program.
And if those funds were allocated, say, to a footpath, they can now get directed to a park if they needed to. They don't need to stay in those particular programs.
In the unallocated component of the funding? Is that your question?
Yes.
Yes, we're just going to take those funds across into the LIP program to be allocated through that process to whatever project is required.
Thank you very much. Is there any further questions, councillors? Councillor Wilcock.
Thank you. I know that I've been working behind the scenes with Director Strachan and a couple of other councils have as well, because we do have concerns. We have projects that have been allocated funding amounts have changed, and that sort of thing. So I'm just flagging it that I've spoken to the Director. We're going to work offline with the Division 11 projects because fund amounts have changed, so I'm going to ask for a spreadsheet on Logan West Parklands and the overnight stays Tully Memorial Park, so that I can see where funds have moved, because I haven't signed projects off or allocated funding or utilised funding previously from these projects, and I have asked previously if there's any unallocated, unspent savings of projects or anything like that, and when I saw the report to see that there's remaining funding or unallocated funding in Division 11, I was quite surprised. It's only a small amount, but I actually didn't know that there was funding sitting there. So I'm not going to support this today because I still have concerns, but I will take it offline and be working with the Director. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. I encourage anybody that has any questions to speak to either Robert or Caroline with regards to this and question those things. But other than that, we should have a motion on the board. Do I have somebody to pass that? So Councillor Bannon has passed the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lane. All those in favour, could I please raise your hands? So that has been carried, with the exception of Councillor Wilcox. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councillor
thank you.
Croce.
Through an abundance of caution, I will be abstaining today.
Thank you for telling me that. Sorry, I didn't have my glasses on. I can see Robert beautifully, but down there's a bit fuzzy. So thank you. Thank you, ladies. Caroline, do you have any further business for us today?
Not today, thank you, Chair.
Councillors, do we have any business for Miss Bug at all? None? Thank you. Thank you for your time today. You got through that brilliantly. Thank you. So, councillors, we're going to go back to 5.3. So, 5.3 is the quarterly second report for 2022-2023 operational plan report. Could I ask Ms Kay Sullivan to enter into the discussions? Good morning, Kay.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, councillors. Report 5.3 relates to our Quarter 2 results for our operational plan. I'll take the report as read, but would just like to highlight and probably support Carolyn's comments around our capital delivery there. I'm really delighted to share with you that based on our health check for Quarter 2, which is completed and on-track projects, we're actually tracking at 97% complete, and that is compared a significant improvement compared to last year, which was at 88%. So great news there. There's only one change that we're seeking, and that's with regard to making sure that the scope and deliverables align with what is documented, and that's with regard to Rosier Park. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms Sullivan. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, just a couple of items on here I'd like to get some more information on, if I could, from whoever sort of is managing these projects. As I'm the chair of the Road Safety and Active Transport Advisory Group, there was a couple of projects on here which I didn't know too much about and really keen to learn more. So the first one is the school safety parking campaign, and also the Safe Roads for Logan Road Safety Action Plan. I know that one's on monitor at the moment due to a few staff changes and so forth, but just really keen to obviously make sure that does continue to progress, because that's really important. So.
Councillor, if I could take those on notice, I'll get further information for you and distribute that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stab. Is there any further questions at all, councillors? No? The lovely girls here have just put the motion up on the board. Do I have a mover for the motion at all? Councillor Bannon has moved the motion. Councillor Fraser has seconded. Can I have, by way of show of hands, all those in favour? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, we'll move on to item 5.4. Thank you very much for coming. Miss Caroline, Miss Kay Sullivan is staying with us, and 5.4 is the 2022-23 Total Asset Management Plan. Miss Sullivan, you may enter into the discussion.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the report as read, but just wanted to highlight a couple of points. Council has legislative requirements to adopt a long-term asset management plan. What we report on in this plan is a number of key, financial sustainability ratios, which includes our sustainability ratios such as our operating surplus ratio, our net financial liabilities ratio, and when you read those in conjunction, Council is in a strong financial position with regard to sustainability. What I'd like to highlight is that given Council has a relatively young asset base and also a significant capital program of new projects, moving forward, what we'll also be reporting on to support that other suite of metrics is an asset renewal ratio as well, which will give us some pretty significant data given the state of our asset base, which will allow us to have a more holistic picture than we already do. I guess what I'd also like to highlight as well is the EAMS project will contribute to a significant increase in quality data to be able to improve the total asset management plan and our reporting on assets. There are a couple of areas for improvement. So as part of the restructure of the EPMO, the old CAM program is now the Strategic Data and Asset Management Program. And one of the actions that they'll be taking is we'll be looking at the frequency of the reporting for this project, for this particular report, and also the content of the report. So I've noted that it can be a little repetitive, so we'll be looking to streamline the report as well. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kay. Before we just move on, councillors, I just note that there is a motion on the board that I need you to pass later, that there wasn't an update attachment in relevance to 5.4. You should have received that, and if not, it'll be attached to the agenda after this meeting. Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, excuse me, sorry. There was a lot in this report. It was quite an interesting report. Read it a few times, and all the, all the ratios and all. It's all quite interesting. I guess the issues that were sort of raised was obviously replacement of assets, and we've got a lot to replace in the future. How often do council assess the useful life, whether or not these are still on track? For example, you have a shelter in a park, for example, and it looks pretty structurally fine as an example, but then it's replaced because it's the end of its useful life, or a park is replaced. And sometimes the community come to me and say, oh, why was that replaced? Because it looked perfectly fine. And then we have the issue of we've got all these assets across the city, whether it be roads or whatever they are, that need replacing in the future. So I guess I'm just curious to see how often is it reviewed to ascertain whether or not we could be pushing the useful life of some of these assets out further, and what the risk and so forth of that is?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your question. So one of the issues that we have at the moment is that the different asset classes are probably assessed in an inconsistent way. One of the outcomes of EAMS will be to go back and have a look at our asset hierarchy and our asset classes, and as part of our operational asset management plans, make sure that we've got the useful life in the right range that it should be. Having on-the-ground information that will be able to be collected through EAMS will allow us to have a greater level of granularity around the actual current state of existing assets. So it will actually be able to make sure we are consistently reporting not only on assets of a like class, but assets of different classes across the organisation. So that is absolutely on the radar for looking at an improvement.
No, that sounds really great. That's good to know. The other quick one was the donated assets. Obviously, that's an interesting one too, because that seems to be increasing as we go along. So I was just curious, with donated assets, do council have input into design and assessment and the purpose for the local area? When we get given a donated asset, do we have input into what that donated asset's going to be used for? Or I guess it's a really interesting one. Can we say, no, we don't want the asset? I'm just curious to understand how they donated assets work.
I don't actually know the answer to that, so I'll take that question on notice. What I can talk to you about is, as the assets come into council, how we manage the process there with regard to donated assets. So there is currently a working group that's been set up at the moment, and that's a combination of DA and finance branch. What we need to do as an organisation is capitalise our donated assets in a more timely manner. So once the assets come into council, I can give you some level of comfort that that's being addressed. But as to before they come into council, I'll just take that on notice and get back to you.
Thank you. Just interested to learn more about that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. There's some very relevant questions, and EAMS hopefully will take some of those problems away and make it more smooth for council to look at our assets across the board. Just for those playing at home, donated assets could be a park that has been given to council from a developer as part of their development application. So then we get that asset to maintain once the development is finished. Councillors, is there any further questions? Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. I'm with Councillor Stemp on this one. It was it was a bit of a hard read, and I did have to read it a few times and that sort of thing, especially to work out who's responsible for the operational documents of the assets and who's responsible for the physical assets and maintaining them, and who needs to actually talk to each other. And that's what I'm finding. Council branches still work in silos. They don't talk together. I've got major issues with 3 different assets at the moment. One of them's crumbling, falling down, but no one wants to take responsibility to put it on an asset renewal list and things like that. But I'm probably going to have to bulldoze it very shortly. And then I have a sporting venue which 3 branches haven't spoken to each other, and then no one's taking responsibility for what's actually happened and that sort of thing. So I'll be hoping that Eames actually picks this up, has a bit more ownership over this or something, because I'm just finding that the person who's responsible out of the program leader, manager, director doesn't talk to another branch to help assess the situation, put it on a list, and get it fixed until literally it's getting to the state where it is crumbling and falling down, and that sort of thing, and it's in disrepair, which then is an asset that's not long-term sustainable, which we could have fixed a few years ago and it wouldn't have been as bad, and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping in the future that Eames can minimise this, and then the capital expenditure that we have to spend wouldn't be as bad as bulldozing and starting again, and that sort of thing. So thanks. More of a statement than a question.
Councillor, just in response to that, as I mentioned before, the Eames project will certainly give us a much improved level of granularity and quality of data at an operational level. What we're also focusing on, as I mentioned before, strategic asset management sits within the EPMO. So from an enterprise perspective, we've got greater level of visibility across the entire organisation. And what we're also looking to do is work very closely across all of council on better defining the different roles and responsibilities between the asset owner and the asset maintainer as well. So all of those things in conjunction will get us a better outcome moving forward.
Thank you, Kay. I have Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair, through you. So we're talking about donated assets, we're talking about sporting clubs and facilities. The other assets that Council is doing a cracking job of maintaining and life lengthening is done down at the depot, down at Marsden. Stephen Bell, Lee Busby and their crew down there have an amazing capacity to actually lengthen the lives of purchased assets for Council, for the roads and the parks and what have you. And I think that when we look at that and we realise how much they are actually getting bang for buck out of purchased assets and prolonging their life, we're actually doing ratepayers a great service in having that crew down there and doing the services that they do. From small business machinery to the larger equipment. I met a gentleman last week, was the PLO thing, and he's actually as part of our council fleet management. And the work that goes into that is quite significant. So having positive reporting as well as very I suppose critical reporting is absolutely vital. So thank you very much for the work in this report. It's great, and I just think if we can really put it in plain speak for people to say how much Council is actually doing to extend the life of these assets, to maintain them, in some cases not so much when we've got 30-year-old soccer clubs with one loo, but it's really great to hear that, and the branches need the kudos for actually delivering that. So yeah, I just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I totally agree with you. This is a billion-dollar company. There is a lot going on, and our staff do the best that they possibly can, although this program will also help them with their job as well. So thank you. Councillor, is there any further questions? No, there is a motion up on the board that the updated attachment in relation to 5.4 of the City Governance Committee meeting be held on the 15th of February 2023 be tabled to the meeting. Could I get a mover for that motion, please? Councillor Raven has moved it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lane. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, and we'll just have a quick update, and the next motion will be up on the screen. There's a motion on the screen. Can I please get a mover? Councillor Lane has moved that we're tabling the report. Anybody for the seconder? Councillor Raven has seconded. Could I, by way of show of hands, please see how you vote. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Kay, do you have any general business for us today?
I just wanted to provide just an update on 2 items in GB and these milestone updates. So I just wanted to let you know that all of the EPMO's project management practices and processes and procedures were endorsed by ELT in December, so they're live across the organisation now. So from a standardisation and consistency perspective in how we deliver our projects, anywhere from small business initiatives through to capital works, we now have fit for purpose and right-sized project management practices there that can be adopted by all. What we also did as part of that work was to develop a number of frameworks. So we have an investment framework, an assurance framework, and also a benefits framework to support those processes there. The second milestone that I just wanted to share is that on the 31st of January, the EAMS base build was signed off. So that's the first significant milestone for EAMS. The base build saw engagement across 15 branches, 170 stakeholders, and we showcase sprints for over 16 weeks. And what we actually built to demonstrate, I guess, the veracity of the solution was we demonstrated 21 real-life branch scenarios that our branches could sit with us and work through, so they could see exactly what this would look like when it went live. What that now means is we're moving on to drop 1, which is implementing the solution for Logan Water, and drop 2 is focusing on documenting the to-be processes for buildings, plant, fleet and equipment. So some really good achievements for the digital transformation team there. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Kay, for that update. Councillors, does anybody have any general business for Kay at all? Thank you very much for your time today and your reports. Have a great day. Councillors, we now move on to item 5.5, and we're going to welcome some visitors to the Governance Committee. So we have the Director of Community and Lifestyle, Mr. Brad White, and Acting Sport, Leisure and Facilities Manager, Mr. Ben O'Brien, who will be talking about Local Infrastructure Program on State-Owned Land for Local Sporting Club report. Gentlemen, who's going to talk to us today? Mr. Ben O'Brien, you may enter discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning again, councillors. The report, or the local infrastructure report before you today, is seeking council endorsement to provide $50,000 to the Marsden State High School for car park lighting that supports the activities of the Southern Suburbs Rugby League Club. From a CEBTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design practice and perspective, this will assist in making the walk at night for parents and kids from the playing fields to the car parks much safer. As part of the guidelines that have recently been adopted and were in place previously under the previous policy, the local infrastructure program does stipulate that council requires a joint development agreement be entered into for capital investment towards sporting and community clubs on state-owned or controlled land. The funding is subject to a 10-year tenure guaranteeing access to for community use over this period, i.e. if the school doesn't enter into the joint development agreement, we don't provide the funding. In this instance, the existing joint development agreement with Marsden State High School that is referenced in this report would need to be amended to suit should this report be endorsed. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I have Councillor Kransky and then Councillor Lane. Thank you.
A couple of things. In the first instance, typically I'm a supporter of these JV arrangements where we've had some success in the past where we've partnered up with the schools, and I recognise that we have a very good relationship with Marsden, and I acknowledge the area councillor is supportive of the report. But I still have a couple of inquiries that I'd like to close the loop on. This one's a little more challenging for me because we're talking about lighting in a car park as opposed to lighting on the field, for example, and field lighting. So the asset owner of the car park itself, is that the state government or is that Logan City Council?
And jump in, Francis, where I might get this wrong, but my understanding is the owner of the land will ultimately own the asset. So when we make a capital investment, we need to secure that 10-year arrangement to guarantee that access and get what I'd like to think is a return on that investment But yes, the state would own the infrastructure in this instance because they own the land.
So my challenge here is then, shouldn't the state be actually funding the lighting in their own car park? Because at the end of the day, the benefit is to the school as a whole, of which there happens to be some sport played on their fields, for which council sponsors, you know, groups and so on. You don't need to answer that, Ben. That's more about my thought process of what the concern is, because I'm looking forward to when my schools are coming to me saying, Councillor Kerensky, we've got a little group that practices on a Tuesday night of 12 kids, and we'd like you to put lighting in the car park because council have already done that at Marsden State High School, so why aren't you doing that for us? I know with an abundance of caution, in previous councils there was always a lot of reticence around what we fund within schools and where council's role starts and ends and where the state's role starts and ends. Please understand I have nothing but support for this school. It's amazing, and I understand the great relationship council enjoys with this school. I'm just a little bit worried about opening up the floodgates for funding requests coming into council. So I'll just flag that through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kerensky. Councillor Lane.
Thanks. So I'm just going to waffle for a second. In South Australia, the schools actually fence their buildings off, and the fields are a community-based asset owned by the state. So they run football out of it, they run athletics, they run a whole range of things. And I know in speaking to the principal of Kingston State High School that he's very keen to enter into these sorts of agreements, particularly for the pool. As the only school, I think, in my area and potentially the surrounding areas that has a pool, he's pretty keen to open it up to the community on weekends and weeknights so that there is a big benefit for the community. I actually support these types of things, and my school's already tapped me on the shoulder for a range of things. This is probably just something a bit better, but bang for buck is what it's all about. If we can open up unused spaces for community use and do it in a safe and secure way, it's not a bad thing in the greater scheme of things. I'm not saying this to be argumentative. I actually had my hand up before your comments were made. South Australia does it extraordinarily well, and they are partnerships between the state government and the local councils. I had one done at Woodridge State High School by the previous councillor for Logan Brothers, and that worked for a period of time, but it ultimately halted because we didn't have lights, and obviously training nights were a big impediment to that. So again, I'm very supportive of this, simply because if we get bang for buck, whether it's 12 kids or 1,200 kids, and Marsden is now at 3,700 kids, my goodness, throwing some lights in a car park is probably something that we can do quite beneficially and add to the safety of the community. So just thought I'd put it out there.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I'm just going to add to that, as our population grows in Logan, and especially say I'm going to put my own divisional hat on, I'm running out of space. So, and I can't just create a park because there's houses there already. So we're going to have to utilise open space that we already have. And partnering with the state government on this matter, I think is a great thing, especially if you're talking about 3,700 students. So that's what I wanted to contribute. Councillor Kerensky wants to add further.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the second chop. And it's not debating the issue because I actually happen to be in agreement with you. It's the concern that I have. And I'd just like to share an experience I've had, if you give me the indulgence, in the past week, where I've had a principal from one of my schools come to me and say, Councillor, is there anything you can do about fencing around the school? To which I say, school fencing surely is a state responsibility, not a council responsibility. To which the answer is, well, the state deem that if it's on a road, it's actually the intent is to keep people out as opposed to keeping people in. Now, the issue that the principal has is that they've got students they're struggling to keep within the school, and they believe it's a safety issue. So invariably they've run this down to the ground through their state member and various other things, and now they're coming to council asking if we can fund a fence around their school because it's a safety issue. So I guess this is just my concern. I'm going to be supportive of this recommendation today. I don't have a problem with that. I just flag with councillors that we're actually on shifting sands, and that do we really want to start to be taking responsibility when we receive about 3% of the taxable/rateable income compared to our state and federal counterparts. I agree. It makes complete sense to share assets and encourage, the community into schools and the school to reach out into the community, but just be careful of what we're committing ourselves to.
Totally understand. Council doesn't have an open-ending funding. We have to work with our counterparts with regards to this and get a great outcome. I totally agree with you with regards to fencing. I think it's a point in past, especially with COVID as well, that we've just gone through. A lot of my schools wanted fencing for that reason. Councillor Raven would like to wrap that up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, councillors, for your comments. I completely agree with Councillor Kerensky that any decision we make can be seen in the context of setting a precedent for other places. And I would say, though, with something like keeping kids in school during school hours, that's nothing to do with council. That's the operations of the school. Whereas when it becomes community using the facility after hours, that's where I feel we've got a role to play or an opportunity. We don't have to, and that's why we bring it to this forum to vote on it. This school is unique in that it's probably the largest high school in the country, if not the region. And the good thing about that is it attracts lots of funding from the state government, but they also put the screws on them and say, oh, we're not going to give you everything we want, everything you've asked for. And we started, when we worked with South originally, to put lights on the football fields and to also help them pay for some additional seating. The school used that really effectively to hold after hours events that the community enjoys, and it has nothing to do with the operations of the school. So Souths hosts that, there's training there, there's games there, there's schoolboy games there as well, which you could say is related to the school, but the community gets the benefit because the space is lit and it's open after hours. When the new construction happened in the school and they got this car park, great outcome for the community, except that if you ever go down there at night, it is pitch black. Like, you don't want to walk from this really well lit field through a pitch black car park to a street that is still has no curb and channel, because it's a rural style road on that side with a big gully drain, and it's just flat out dangerous. There's very limited street lighting, and it doesn't make you feel like it's a safe environment. This isn't being paid for exclusively by council. This 50 grand contributes to the cost of the car park lighting, which the school has squirreled away money for a couple of years now, and it's the difference of whether they have to squirrel it away until 2025 to be able to afford it on their own, or whether we help them utilise this asset that we've contributed to making so great, so the community can enjoy it this football season, hopefully, with construction timelines. And that's why I'm supportive of it. I completely agree with what Councillor Kerensky is saying around schools coming to us for operational reasons to do with their role. I've never had a school ask me for a perimeter fence. I've asked a school if we'd be interested in removing a perimeter fence so community can access things.
I know we can send one.
I know. I'll send that. I'll send Crestmead State School your way. But I'm surprised that they'd expect council to contribute to something that really is operational on their part. But I understand why it can be difficult when you get precedent. As Councillor Wilcox knows, Marsden gets a lot of funding because they are so big and they've got catchment controls on them, and that actually makes a rod for other schools' backs as well, where they go, well, if Marsden's got such great facilities, why don't we? And it's a recurring theme I hear, not just from councillors who pointed out, but also from the community who don't have kids at that school and want to, but are outside the catchment and are frustrated that they don't get the same facilities that Marsden does. But when you've got 3,700 students going there every day, plus the community that wraps around them to support them and participate and use this facility, I think it's a great opportunity for council to partner with what is essentially an anchor institution in our city. 600 staff and 3,700 young people go there every day. It's a great place to open up at night, and a wasted asset if we don't.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Just to reiterate, the $50,000 allocated for this project is only a part payment of this, and the whole project is how much?
About 150 from memory, although I was talking to the principal last week and he says with escalating prices it's probably going to be higher than that, but he's not asking anything additional from council.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. I have Councillor Hall.
Yep, through you, the Chair. I'm a little bit at odds with this one, mainly because there was a comparison there that was made between the existing pools that we have and a pool that we may have inside a school. Now, the existing pools that we have, my understanding is most of them are run through private leasing arrangements, and they create a revenue source for council, which we can put back into other things, other projects. But the situation for this, I don't believe there would be any revenue source for council. In a sense, if they were to open it to the public, I believe they would be charging the public. So, would that be right, John? Councillor Raven?
Sorry, there's no pool at this place.
No.
That was a different comment from Councillor Lane about a different school.
Yeah, Councillor
isn't to do
Hall,
with that.
I'm struggling to understand how this conversation come about, but there's no pool at Marsden, is that correct, John?
Correct, there's just football fields where they hold community events. During footy season, it's nearly every week, and about 2,000 people attend. And there's just improved safety around those events, so because people don't feel safe walking through a dark car park back to their cars and to the street.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got a few councillors have raised their hands. I've got Councillor Wilcox and Councillor Bannon. Councillor Wilcox?
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Lane only referenced Kingston State College pool because it's right at the back of their school grounds, on the back side of their oval, because I used to teach there. And you have to go down the side of the car park across the oval to get to it. So she was saying fencing off the school so people don't actually have to walk through the school to get down to the pool area. That's what she was referencing. Just quickly on the total project cost, how much is state putting in?
The remainder, so it's somewhere between 150 and 180 grand. So the total budget is 180, we're contributing 50.
Councillor Wilcox, I think it's really hard to state how much this is going to be contributed because, as we all know, there's shifting prices.
But good. I just wanted to make sure
we're just putting in a small amount.
The state was chipping in, and you were just putting in a small amount.
They are chipping in more than us by at least 2/3.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon.
I understand LIP projects have to come back for the policy, but this is the problem with it. Like, at the end of the day, the local councillor he's the subject matter to his division, especially John with what he does there. Like, I don't know what he's. I hope this doesn't happen for every local infrastructure project. Like, if I'm doing something in my division, I guarantee I know more about it than everyone in the room. So when it comes to you spending your LIP money in your division, it blows my mind that we get into it. I couldn't care what the state are paying. You would have done the research on it. You would have done your due diligence on it. So I just hope this doesn't happen with every infrastructure project that we put through. And that was my concern. I know you had to do this, but I'm not even going at you, but that's my concern, is that you're the local councillor. You know what you're doing. You do all your due diligence. And if we turn this, every time we put LIP money up, if this happens, it'll be chaotic.
Councillor Bannon, I think this is a different report because it's actually on a state land.
I know exactly what it is, but it's exactly the same point. The local council's the expert. He knows what he's doing with it. He looked into it more than most people would. So that's what I'm saying.
That's correct, but we're allowed to have debate with regards to the report.
But I'm saying, I hope this doesn't happen with every single one.
Yeah. So I do believe the gentlemen want to talk. Is that correct? No? And then Councillor Wilcox. And then I'll wrap it up with Councillor Kerensky, and then I think no? Okay. Gentlemen, do you need to enter any conversation into this, or I think we're done?
No, Councillor Bannon covered at the end of the comment in regards to the only reason this report is here is because it's on state-owned and controlled land. So Councillor Bannon covered it. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. All of us are very due diligent with our research. We're all mindful of what we can get bang for buck for. We're also very mindful of the safety of our residents. We're all very keen to keep everybody safe and activated in our cities. So at the moment we have a motion on the board. I would suggest Councillor Raven would like to pass that motion. Is that correct? Have I got a seconder for the motion? Councillor Lane has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Hello, we carried that unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Before you all go away, does anybody have any general business for the acting sport, leisure and facilities manager? No? Whew. Thank goodness for that, Ben. Hey, run quickly. Do you have any for us?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, really? Okay, thank you. Today that has wrapped up the items on our reports. Does anybody have any general business for Robert Stratton at all? Wow, Robert, quiet as church mouses. Robert, do you have any general business for us?
Not today.
Thank you. Councillor, that brings us to the end of our agenda today. So that concludes it. Any further discussions? No? Thank you. Our meeting has closed at 10:43. Thank you very much, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.